Hey guys, it's Sam from Mandarin. I hope you're all doing well. Now in this video, I want to go through some of the more fundamental and basics of archery. So I'm going to be going through some of the essential archery gear that you should absolutely have in your inventory, as well as the basics of how to hold a bow and how to draw that perfect release that we all strive for. Seems kind of basic, but when you're just starting in archery, there is a lot to make it overwhelmingly difficult. And these are some of the mistakes I still see archers do today. So let's get into it. First and foremost, essential archery equipment. Now, there are some things that are entirely optional. For example, the sling. The sling, in my opinion, is very, very optional. It's not something that I like to use. You'll tend to see it more with recurve target archers. And for everyone that doesn't know what a sling is, essentially, while you're holding your bow, you'll have something wrapped around your thumb, going around to either your first or your second finger, making sure that when you do draw it back and then release, you're able to completely let go of the bow, or at least not really have any tangible grip on it, and the bow will just allow to dip forward and then go back very nicely. It's very smooth, and the reality is, for target recurve shooters, it is an essential bit of kit for them. It's part of how that particular style of archery goes. That being said, there are two bits of equipment that you should absolutely always have, and it's always worth experimenting with. The first one is a bracer. Now this is the Seeker bracer from Mandarin Duck, obviously. I've had it in a lot of videos lately. I personally love this bracer. It is so easy just to pop on, just to pop off. The power cord here wrapped around the rivets make it so nice. So when it's hotter weather, like it is today, albeit raining on and off, or whether it's the winter or the autumn, you know, my preferred times to go out shooting, I've got my jumper and my hoodie, whatever it is, and I can just pop this on the top. This is a great bit of gear. Now, there are ways of shooting that you won't hurt yourself. You won't get that string slap, but when all's said and done, you don't want string slap. Even to this day, I see archers who are more experienced than I am still getting string slap because we're human beings and it's what we do. But even then, you don't really want to explain why you've got a massive whelp across your forearm because the string has hit your arm, especially when you get really inexpensive, fantastic bits of leather work like this that give you a nice bit of protection. Secondly, the most important bit of archery equipment that you could possibly have. Now, this is not something that I'm going to be using a lot in today's video because I'm not shooting a particularly powerful bow. It's not really over 24 pounds, but the most important reason is that I'm not shooting all day. I'm shooting just for the purpose of this. But if I were shooting all day, even with the Mandarin Duck Thorn, I would be using this. Now, the reason why the glove is such an important bit of gear, when you are shooting a bow, that string coming off of your fingers or off of your thumb, it is going to have a long-term effect. Essentially, you're giving yourself nerve damage for later on in life if you're not using a glove, and it's just not worth it. There are a myriad of gloves, tabs, finger tab gloves like this. This is of course the Seeker, my favorite glove to wear. There's just so many options out there to fit around you. Now, for years I preferred to use a tab, and that sort of varied depending on which arrows I was using, but in general I always preferred to use a tab. Now I prefer to use this, the Seeker glove. It's high quality leather, it keeps my fingers protected, and it means that if I do stop shooting, the reason why I've stopped shooting is not because my fingers hurt. But there you go. In my opinion, the two most important bits of PPE, if you like, that you should have with archery is a bracer and a glove. I'm about to be incredibly hypocritical because I'm not actually going to use either of them while I'm shooting the bow today. Now, when it comes to starting off in archery, my personal opinion is that you should have some form of ambidextrous bow. some bow that it doesn't matter if you pick up with your left hand or with your right hand, that you can just pick up and shoot. As easy and as simple as possible. Because even, I remember when I started archery looking at left hand and right hand bows, and that in itself confused the hell out of me. And for anyone else who's in that same sort of confusion right now, if you see a bow and it's down as a right-handed bow, it means that you hold the bow in your left hand. If you sort of think of it like, I'm a right-handed shooter, I'm holding the string with my right hand. I'm not holding it with my left hand. So if you take the dominant hand that you are, so for me, again, right hand, so I buy right-handed bows, despite the fact that I hold the bow in my left. It seems counterintuitive, but if you sort of think of it like that, it kind of makes a bit more sense. But even with that being said, horse bows like this, like the Mandarin duck thorn, they're very, very simple, and they're also very lightweight. I personally don't shoot heavy anymore. I did shoot war bows, and I used to shoot 40s and 50s and 60s just as a regular. Now I don't really see the need to. I don't. I'm very, very happy with my bows being 30 pounds. And the horse bow here, I've got the thorn here, the fact that it is around 20 to 24, 25 at a push. For me, that's absolutely fine because I'm not a hunter. I don't need a powerful bow. That's just my preference. And when you're starting with archery, I think it's very, very too easy to get yourself a bow that's just too strong for you. Archery muscles are not muscles that we use day in, day out. You can be a very fit person, you can be a very strong person, and your archery muscles are going to be very weak because you don't really use those muscles. Plus, when you're starting light, it does mean that you get to focus more on technique over speed, over anything else. And when you focus on technique first, everything else just sort of go into play. Typically, Western style of shooting, starting with how you actually hold the bow. It's very, very common, I see this a lot, where people grab the bow and they hold it for dear life. Sort of the white knuckling effect. That's really not what you want to do. Archery is sort of that limbo of being so relaxed you're not taking part and being overly tense to the fact that you're not going to be a good shooter. So what I mean by that is if I white knuckle and I grip this thing like it owes me money, I can still do everything right, I can shoot and everything's all good, but because my grip is too tight on this bow, it's going to be too rigid. And the arrow that needs movement, that needs motion, is not going to get that from the bow. So essentially you're in a position where the bow is fighting the arrow, and that's not where you want to be. So for typical traditional Western archery, a really good technique is to tuck your two little fingers, your third and your fourth finger right in so that you can't actually use. So all the strength that you're holding the bow with is with your first finger, your second finger, and your thumb. Now it feels very odd to start off with, but once you've got that level of comfort down, once you've got that level of grip down, and that feels a lot more natural so that you're picking up the bow nice and relaxed to the point where you can then just wrap your fingers around if you wish. That makes a big, big difference. I want the bow to move when I'm shooting. And again, this is one of the reasons why people will use a sling on their fingers, so that the bow can move and that they can have a very relaxed grip and not actually drop the bow. Personally, I don't like it, so I don't use them. Prefer to work on the grip, but it is something that's really important to keep into consideration. You want your bow hand, which for me is my left hand, you want it to be as relaxed as possible without dropping the bow. Get a good knock on the string, relaxed bow hand. It may also help as well, as I've seen this quite a lot recently with people who are just getting into archery. When they knock the string and they start doing that typical, or what I would view as a typical target archery motion of being absolutely vertical and then up. quite a lot of the time this arrow is coming off. It is very common, and it will happen to the best of us, and it will happen to the most experienced of us as well. But one of the things that I'd say is, if you are struggling with that and it's something that's really getting to you, start with a simple can. Start with a very, very simple can. That way, gravity is helping you keep this arrow in this little V that I'm making. Now also, if you have actually had a close-up look of how I actually prefer to shoot with my left hand, a lot of the time when I draw, my hand's open, and then it's lightly wrapped around just in time for me to let go of the arrow. Up, boom, boom. So that is the grip. Now we've got how you actually hold the arrow, nock the arrow, and shoot. There are a ton of different styles out there. For this video, I want to run over just a few of them, just to keep it simple, and just so that, you know, the video is not going to take a full day just to watch, because it really could go on for that long. Typically, when we hold the bow like that, when we've got our Western grip on place, we have the arrow nocked on the outside of the bow. We'll either do a Mediterranean split or 3 under. I hate 3 under. It just doesn't feel right, and if something doesn't feel right to me, I don't do it. I have seen people who just use 2 fingers, and it's not that that's necessarily wrong. It's not that that's necessarily a bad way of shooting. However, for the same reason that I say you should have a glove when you shoot, essentially the issue comes down to whatever bow you're shooting, whether it's a bow like this, which is only 20 to 24 pounds in draw weight, whether it's Devourer, the Black Hunter, whatever it is, you are holding, when you draw back, the full weight of the bow. So whether it's 20, 25, 30, 35, whatever pounds you're shooting, you're holding that back, and you're holding it realistically in your joints there. I would rather spread that draw weight on 3 fingers than just trying to put it on 2, because if it's all that weight is just on 2 fingers, you're more likely to do yourself an injury long term. So 3 fingers, arrow nocked on the outside of the bow with a Mediterranean split, so it's racked in right there, and I'm going to draw back. I'm going to come to my anchor, which for me is a mix of my finger going there. More consciously, I'm getting the knuckle of my hand right there. I'm getting it right there, just underneath my cheekbone, wedged in quite tight. A lot of the time, I don't actually feel my finger touching the corner of my mouth, because I'm just focused on getting that knuckle underneath my cheek. I've got my bow hand grip is nice and relaxed and ready. My right hand grip, I'm all in, I'm aimed up. The all important loose. And this is something that's, I even see friends of mine still doing it. It's not that you're trying to open your fingers and then let it go and everything else. You're not. That shouldn't be what you're consciously trying to do. Instead, you should be looking at just not holding the string anymore. So when you shoot, when you see a lot of archers, when they shoot, they'll sort of do this flurry thing after. It's not voluntary. It's not that we're trying to do that. It's just that we've stopped fighting the bowstring. We've stopped holding on to it, and we just relax. So the whole process, nice, relax. That's how simple it is. And I do also want to point out, I did just hit myself with the string. So it happens. It happens. I think I can get away with it with this bow because it is such a light bow. But I'm not going to lie and say it didn't hurt. It hurt. And if I was shooting all day, I would be wearing a bracer. Nice, relaxed. Now with more Eastern archery, things start to change. Even actually how you hold a bow. So typically with Western archery, as I said, that's more or less your grip right there. With Eastern archery, it's a bit of a reverse. So the actual strength comes from your bottom 2 fingers and your thumb. Holding it there means that your thumb is fully ready to help hold the arrow. And typically in Eastern archery, when it comes to whether it's Chinese archery, whether it's Saracen archery, whether it's Turkish archery, Mongolian archery, you'll typically have the arrow resting on some part of the thumb even if it's just the knuckle. You'll have it there somewhere. And that's when you start to play with changing what your right hand does, what your string, what your shooting hand does. So a typical Eastern draw, you wrapped in your thumb right there, either your first finger or your second finger, pulling back, getting into a very nice, very simple draw again, and then release. So again, very nice, relaxed. I prefer my middle finger, my second finger to go around, and then my first finger to be on the arrow. It's not completely unlike Saracen archery. Saracen archery is more like this instead of holding your thumb. So it's a lot similar to doing a Mediterranean style of draw. Instead just having your finger there on the arrow. Relaxed. I know with some traditional styles of Chinese archery that I've shown, you keep your first finger on the string there and you will bring it into the body. For me, I'm not particularly great at that anchor point, and it's all about repeating what worked before. So for me, I do prefer to bring it back. I do prefer that, to feel that anchor point, even having the bow as a cant. And the big difference when you do this type of archery is, whereas in traditional Western archery, you'll shoot and you might tip down. When you shoot in more traditional Asian styles or Eastern styles of archery, you get that little bit of cutter going on. So instead of the bow going down, you get it to the side. This does open yourself up to a lot more interesting styles of archery, but I don't think we've got the time to go through them today. So there you are, guys. Those are the basics, the fundamentals, in as quick a time as I could possibly get them out. Archery is one of these beautiful sports that truly does include everyone. As I often say, the third greatest archer in the world is a bloke who does not have arms. Archery is something that everyone who wants to try can try, and it's one of the most beautiful sports in the world because of that very simple principle. So guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, or if you didn't, let me know why down below. If you have any questions for Mandarin Duck at all, you can always leave them down below, or you can shoot them over on our Facebook page. Links will be all down below. And if you like any of the equipment that you saw today, whether it was the Seeker set with the brace and the glove, links will of course all be down below to mandarinduck.net. Until next time guys, keep safe. I'll see you then.